Okay, man, cool. The wireless is working.
Oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you got it. Okay, cool. You want me to keep it
Great.
going?
All right, bro.
Okay, yeah, the other ones, those are for the band. Those are the band mix headsets, is what those are.
Are those the IAMs or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, cool. All right, thanks, Edwin.
Okay, man. Let me know if you have anything else. No
All right,
problem.
appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Yep. Sorry about that, dude.
There we go.
Anything we need to do in the strong room regarding this?
That is a possibility. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2. Test. Okay.
Well, let me go there.
Yeah, that's gonna be in the audio board. So. Mary?
They were in Jerusalem
Here you
before
go.
us. Oh, thank you. This was on my belt.
Yeah, it just needs to clip onto something as long as you keep that antenna free.
Well, I know, that's the trouble, we never.
That should be okay there.
Okay, and how do
Then
you do
this is gonna fit over your ear,
Okay,
like that.
yeah.
And then if you need to clip this to the front of you or move it up and down, however you want to do that.
Okay.
And I have the volume, it's on, but I have the volume down.
Okay.
Because I'm going to go look for the signal. So you just keep chatting away, doing whatever. I'm going to go look for the
Okay.
signal in there to make sure it
Okay.
goes through to the stream.
And we've got this is gonna work right.
This should be back up and running.
Good. Hi, Don, how are you? I'm so glad you're here and get to see this. You're in one picture in you run with the Muslim lady or the Bedouin lady next to you.
Oh yeah, that. Yeah.
It wasn't the best picture, but it lets people see what the Muslim woman looks like.
About what you said. That's what,
Well, I was
And
driving. I could
I think this will be.
tell when we got to the place where I had
I have an air
close
conditioner
together,
man coming,
and
so
I
I'm
was
have to
closing
leave
my
about
eyes.
10:45. But you
Maintain
just
the
said it'd be about
balance.
45 minutes. Right?
45 minutes to
I
an
mean,
hour.
11:45. You have to, yeah.
Well, I've got really till 12 o'clock, and I don't know how time-wise it'll work. And they say should. Does that work?
Yes, that keeps it.
This is keep
But it
pulling.
keeps
We don't
going.
have a name tag either. How are we gonna know? I know
But
I
the-
was
the,
gonna
tension
go way
in
down.
the wire is pulling it off your ear. Having it clipped.
Can you help me with that?
Well, I can try. Let's put it back on your ear. Let's see if we can find a place so that this
I
does
think
not.
that's
The
pull.
sticker by Jerusalem Cross.
It's a pretty,
Yeah, it is pretty, but
Thank you.
I'm not supposed to.
Yes, you're not supposed to reach onto women's chest and pick up the medallions.
No, I can just see.
No, you're
I'm not
supposed to do
pick
that.
that up.
Okay, I'm not sure where to.
So my head's turned.
And the way your hair is, it may be up. He's got it on there. I don't know whether fastening
That should
this.
work. Yeah,
Okay.
if you do fasten that, then it'll maybe give it a little bit of slack,
Uh-huh.
and then just clip it on, and then you can turn your head.
Okay. Thank you.
See if that
I think. Great. All right. Well, thank you much.
But
You can
I think
preach
the
on
reason the
Sunday.
pictures were different is the fact that they showed just the 3 and 4 days that
Yes.
they did pre our tour.
I see. They
And
just
they went to
showed.
see things that we did not go on the
Yeah.
tour to see. Just like you saw the things, when you went after. So, looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yes, you're welcome.
Hey, Helen. I'm so glad you came. Well,
I saw your
a
picture
lot.
up there. That is so cute.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, it's amazing. More interesting, like at Herod's. Yeah, I'll do that.
If you'll just do this, we'll do a standing O.
Let me see.
They wouldn't take you. Y'all are just
Thinking about just
not taking pictures.
work.
Next time I see you, I'll be 80.
This will be an interesting deal.
Susan, she won't let me put that on your hip either.
Good after. Well, it's not afternoon yet. It's still good morning. If you can find your way to a seat, we'll get started. We are excited to have the continuation of report from the November Holy Land trip, and Susan and Bill went to Jordan and other places, I think. And we'll be able to hear about that as well. So just to remind you, May is our final month for regular speakers. June, July, and August, we will only do our birthday lunch, and we're likely to do some special things in between, and we'll get that information out to you as quickly as possible. Next Friday, we are going for our birthday lunch to Comfort Cafe. Who's been there? Who came away from that hungry? If you haven't been to Comfort Cafe, it is an awesome place for lunch. The catch is that you need to bring $15 cash because they don't take credit cards, and they don't offer. I can't pay for you, so you need to bring cash. We can't collect money here and turn it in. And $15 is the recommended. And if you want to do more than that for a tip or appreciation of your server, we have had some great lunches there. The time has changed. I think it says on the flyer 11. I talked with them. They can accommodate us at 11:30. So you don't need to get there before 11. Well, you do need to get there before 11:30. But you don't need to get there by 11. There will be a shuttle from the church here, and you need to sign up for the shuttle on the table out in the foyer. So that's the 19th of May. On the 26th of May, we have Brigadier General Michael J. Lovell coming. I had a great conversation with him on the phone several times, and I met with him in my office. He comes by way of Sichuan Civ. He has been the commander of many Air Force bases. He has been here in San Antonio. Now he is basically working on cyber attacks. And he's going to share a little bit about that. But first he's going to share information about Memorial Day. And if you have family members that served and were killed in service, please bring pictures. We'll have a table up, and we'll honor those folks as well. And so that is May 26th, and the sign-up is also out there on the table. June 16th is our June birthday lunch. We will be going to Blanco Barbecue. The sign-up isn't out yet, but it will be out by next week. And then July 21st and August 18th are the other two birthday lunches, and I don't have them confirmed yet, but we'll get that out to you as soon as they're confirmed. I think that's all of the announcements, and we're thankful for Susan coming back. We can assure you that her slides are in order and have been tested, and so there won't be any problems today. And
You might want to talk about how we're going to handle the birthday lunches.
oh yes, next week, because I can't pay in advance for that. If it's your birthday in May, pay for this month and then choose any other birthday month that you want to take your free lunch, because I can't get reimbursed if I don't have a receipt, and it will be difficult for me to know how. It gets kind of sketchy when I start using my own funds for that, and they ask me, oh, where did that come from? So if you have a May birthday, we don't want to forget your birthday lunch. So pick any of the other birthday lunches, and you can determine which one you want to have for free. Does that make sense? Because, yes, ma'am. No, it's off of 410. Yes, exactly. And yeah, that's where they're housed. It's Comfort Cafe because it's comfort food. And the cafe is run by a recovery group, and everyone who works in the cafe is going through some kind of recovery. And all of the waiters and waitresses, it's just an amazing atmosphere. It's fun, and did I say it's good food? Mm-hmm. Because you will be surprised at the size of the portions on your plate when they bring it to you. And we will have a shuttle from here. The shuttle will leave at 11 o'clock, and so you can park in the parking lot. The reason that we encourage people to take the shuttle is there's not a lot of parking there, and you may have to walk a long way from where you park. So encourage you to ride the shuttle for this one. Any other questions? Well, let's get going. Susan, thank you for being here. I don't think Susan needs any introduction. Everybody knows her, and we're thankful that you're here with us today.
Thank you, Joe. So I guess we're going to get the mic. Can you hear well? So maybe down a little bit. And is this off, Joe? Because we could turn this off too, I think, right? Just so we don't get feedback, right?
Susan, I think you have a volume knob right here. You may need to turn it up. No, you don't? Okay.
Shalom. Shalom. Can anyone tell us what that means? Peace. What does the first shalom mean? Hello or goodbye. And then the second one is peace and comfort to you and so forth. I thought we'd start, I'm getting feedback, I think, up here. I thought we'd start by having the people who went to Israel stand. So at lunch, if you're sitting with one of these people, you can ask them questions. So would you mind standing if you went to Israel on this trip? So everybody knows? Great. Thank you. So I thought what we would do is start with our arrival in Israel and Tel Aviv is where we began. And the first day that we had, unfortunately, it started raining, but we did really well with that situation. And we were taken to the place that Herod is known for, Herod the Great. And the reason for that is that he didn't have a port on the Mediterranean, and he wanted to have the ability to be involved in trade so that he could make money and build all of these great palaces and things that were important to him. And so he was a master builder, and he wanted his location on the Via Maris trade route between Rome, Persia, Babylonia, the Orient, and the Arabian Peninsula. So to begin making this port, he needed to build a structure that would define the sides of the port. And so he took stones that were, I guess you'd say stones or boulders, 50 feet long, 18 feet wide, and 10 feet thick. And he built those, stacked them into water that was 120 feet deep. And this gave him the structure for building a port that was 40 acres in size. And where we are here is walking into the entrance to the theater. And if this is a theater that they were describing in Mike's notes, it was positioned so that the way that the winds blew through the theater amplified the voices. So they didn't have microphones and stuff, and that really helped them. And so he also built some other things here in this location. That's another one of the stadium, the theater. And this, I guess, you can see better on this side. So you can see the size of his palace, and note that it goes out into the water on this promontory he's built. And you'll see some columns. Those are about all that remain. This is a freshwater pool set in the ocean and surrounded with those rocks. And I thought I had the size of that, but I guess I don't. Here are the columns from the palace. And this is a mosaic floor out on this promontory. He also built civic halls, palaces, and aqueducts. There's a Roman aqueduct we saw that brought water from the mountains all the way down here. And there's a picture I've seen where the aqueduct really runs parallel to the coastline, which is kind of an interesting place to put that. He built sewers. He had a hippodrome where they had chariot races, Olympic races, and an amphitheater. And the theater you just saw seats 4,000 people. So he really established a huge city that was there. And curiously enough, his son, Herod Agrippa, died when he was in the theater. So it doesn't say why. I haven't found out whether that was by chance or intended. So this is a Roman house, and it wasn't too far from where Jesus lived. And it's a home built by a very elite person. You'll notice that the stones are of different sizes, and that's because he's used stones from buildings that were torn down and put them together to make this particular building. This was built in the 3rd century, and it was listed as an elite Roman villa. Now we're going to go inside and look at the dining room floor, which is a mosaic that was built with scenes of the god Dionysus' life. And in making these mosaics, they use little pieces that are only 1/4 of an inch square. So they're just thousands of pieces in those mosaics. And this particular one, you can see the woman's face, and she is considered to be the Mona Lisa of Galilee. This mosaic flooring is in the dining room. It's 20 feet by 20 feet. And this is considered to be one of the finest pieces in Italy and Israel. The Sea of Galilee is one of the most beautiful places in Israel. And a curious thing about the sea, it's quite large, but it's calm all during the morning. It doesn't get its wind until the afternoon and evening. So that helps us see when Christ was out on the boat and the wind and the waves came. That was at night, and that's when we get more wave action. The Sea of Galilee is 600 feet below sea level, and This let's see, the next shot is the group of us that went to this particular place in Capernaum to look at the Sea of Galilee. And, oh, I'm going back. No, that's a different one, right? Okay. So when we took a boat ride on the Sea of Galilee, which was really amazing, and had a church service out there. And when we came back, we went to this room and were told a story about a man who was walking along the beach, and he found these nails and looked at them, and they weren't like anything that was a modern nail. And he showed it to some archaeologists, and they figured out that they were nails from the time of Christ, because the pot that was found when they started digging and the lamp to the left are all from that period. So they continued digging, and they found this boat, a fisherman's boat, and it could have been Peter's boat. There's no way to know, but they were able to save that and restore it and keep it from, further aging. I thought you might be interested in some of the scenery. These, I believe, is an olive orchard. They had orchards with olives and date palms, and all of this is through irrigation. That's a huge olive orchard. And here are your date palms. I think we have those in San Antonio. So the next place that we're going to is Peter's house. And this is it's still in the Galilee area. It's close to a temple, and the reason the people think this is Peter's house is that round area that you notice is where the people would have gathered to have their church services. So that's what makes them believe that that was his home, as well as the time and so forth. And they built a building on top of it, leaving an airspace between the ceiling and the exterior of his home. And I wanted to show you back here where this round area is. That's where they think that they met for services, and then there are other rooms around the exterior. And this is the bottom of the church built on top of it, and some of the area that protects it. So next we're going to go look at the River Jordan. And these mosaics, you can't imagine, there must have been 50 or 60 of them around the pool with the scripture about Christ coming from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And there are people who come to this place and get baptized, and they have metal structures like this, and they'll walk out to the water and hold on that structure, and then the minister will come by and have a service and baptize them. So let's look at the Jordan River. It was really beautiful. Sishan says that where Christ supposedly was baptized, that there's no water. So I don't know, if that must be in a different area than this one. And that's our group down there with Mike and Bob. While I'm getting ahead of myself, so here we are driving along to another location with the palm trees. And this is an olive tree. And you'll notice how wide the trunk is. It's about 2,000 years old. And there were just a few of them that we got to see, but that was really exciting. So now we're going to go to the Temple Mount. And this is Jerusalem that you're looking at. All of these places here are where the Jewish people are buried, and they're buried underneath these structures. And these structures go all the way down here to the road and is way over here. What is this? Remember what that is called up here? The Great Wall, the second wall that was built around Jerusalem. And this is the what? Dome of the Rock, right. Now, right here, these are the Muslim, where the Muslim people are buried. And you'll see something very interesting about that. This gate is closed. It's called the Golden Gate. And I'll talk about that later. The Garden of Gethsemane is down here. This gives you a better view of the wall. And you can pay to walk up on the parapets around the wall if you want when you go to Israel. We didn't do that, but that's something you could do. Here's a closer view of the cemetery. And if you've seen Chandler's List, then you know about the rocks which are, oh dear, the rocks which are placed on the gravesite when their family comes to visit. They oftentimes leave a rock.
Can you go back to that?
Oh, to this one? Let's see.
See, right in the middle of the frame, there's a hole in the side of that. These aren't coffins, they're just like memorial things.
Mhm.
And that's open so that family members can come put a candle in there if they want to. It's really different. These aren't the graves, they're just the tombstones or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, let's see. And there's the Golden Gate again, and with the Muslim cemetery. And this marks the opening of, the beginning of the Garden of Gethsemane. The Garden of Gethsemane covers the entire western slope of the Mount of Olives. And at the foot of the Mount of Olives, I should have shown that to you, is the Kidron Valley. That's the distance, the valleys between that Golden Door, Golden Gate, and the Garden of Gethsemane. So we're going to look at some more olive trees. If you notice, the branches have kind of disappeared. They're mostly out of the top when they're that old. So right now, we're still in the Garden of Gethsemane, and the reason I wanted to stop here and talk about the Golden Gate is Joe had asked me a question when we were in Israel, and he said, what was one of the things that impressed you the most? And what I thought about is when Christ was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, he knew that the Roman soldiers would be coming out of this gate with torches at night, crossing the Kidron Valley and coming to take him away. And I think that would be really tough.
The story about why the gate is now bricked up is because the Muslims believe that Christ might have a second coming, but they knew that he would not go across the infidels or their cemetery. So they built a cemetery there, and they literally blocked up the gate that he's supposed to come through.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I've heard that. That's really interesting. So, all right. This is just an example of a tomb in the Garden of Gethsemane, and you'll notice the empty hole at the bottom. That's the place where you go into the tomb, and this is what it looks like when you get down and take a picture of it, just to give you an idea. So here we are at the beginning of the Muslim cemetery, and that's their sign for the cemetery. And what I wanted you to notice is I took this picture of the cemetery and the trash around the graves. The Muslims are not very tidy people. In fact, with their home is their castle, and so whatever's in their home is what they treasure and take care of. So they don't take care of any of the grounds around their home or near the streets, and there's just trash everywhere, which is very different from the way the Jewish people live. Lionsgate Street. This is where we went in to begin going through the Muslim market. I thought you might really enjoy seeing some photos from there. We're going to start up this street, which is really narrow, and they had cars coming down there, which was really hard to imagine. The Pool of Bethesda. So a lot of these places like this, they had pools because in the Jewish religion, you had to follow certain rules, and you had to cleanse yourself if you did certain things or that required cleansing. So there were pools around people's homes on the exterior as well as here in a more public place. And in the next slide, that pool is about 25 feet below grade, and that's where they washed the sheep before they took them to the temple to be sacrificed. And this is something I want you to listen to, that Mike invited all of the people in our group to come in and join him in a hymn. And I think you'll see someone you know here. So did you want to play that? Thank you. So I thought that was a great example of acoustics, and Mike's direction was perfect, as well as a song for the kind of situation that was. Afterwards, another church was in there, and they were playing or singing Amazing Grace, and that doesn't work. There's too much verbiage for the church to carry in here. So we're going up the street here, and you're going to be looking at different things that the Muslims in their marketplace sell. This is Stephen's Gate, and at one time, I'm presuming this is the edge of the city, because when you were crucified or killed in some other manner, you had to be taken out of the city, and then it was done out of the city, and that's where he was murdered. It was outside of that gate. And then this is a view from the same area that we're going to listen to briefly. Thanks. So that's just a reminder of the call to worship. Oops. Lots of colorful fruits and drinks. And Mike said, don't stop, don't ask people for anything, don't pick up anything because you will never get away. So I just stopped and took photos of different things. And that was something that'd make Bill itch if he went in there with all that press. And the pomegranates. I love the way they arrange different things to sell. And those are dates. Now things are starting to get really crowded, and there were some people who had asked whether they could come if they used a cane or a walker, and it just, in that particular area, it wouldn't work very well. And then this is Jerusalem at sunset. And Mike always takes everyone to a place there where you can see that beautiful shot. So now we're going to go to Bethlehem. And we had lunch there, and then we went shopping. It's the only place we went shopping. And what we got here? Oh, that was supposed to be taken out. So I think it's kind of fun. 4 stars restaurant.
The Bethlehem is just like driving down the Heights. Now there's no difference in the city at all.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be a couple hundred yards or miles.
So this is Harold, and he's walked into the store, but it's not what you think it is. And I put it there as payback for Harold. But there are 3 locks on those doors, and I wanted you to look at the size of the locks that they're using because of robberies and such. This particular artist is one of the best in his woodwork and carving, and I think I have his name here is Munir, Cwemeh. Maybe, so I don't know. But this is where we spent money on our crosses and Christmas presents and so forth, but look at the Last Supper. Oh, Bill says it's at least 4 feet wide or 5 feet wide, this big piece. So Herod built this part of the temple, and we were in a tunnel back in Jerusalem now, and it's the way that the priests would get in to the temple. And one thing that was typical of Herod's work was these little niches that are in the stone. And this particular piece here is larger than a school bus. And how much did you say it weighed?
The guide was very proud of this. That stone's supposed to weigh 500 tons or something. But regardless, I look at the enormity of it, and where I'm standing, that's natural bedrock. So it sat right on that. You know, like 3,000 or 2,500 years ago, that was pretty tricky to get there. They obviously moved it into the holes.
And the Wailing Wall is on the other side of this wall. So now we're at the Jewish quarter, which you'll find is quite a bit different than the Muslim quarter. And one of the temples here, and I don't remember the story about this. Does anyone remember the story about why that was built? Or I think some really wealthy person built that. Lots of apartments. Falafel is what we were encouraged to eat in a lot of these places we went to for lunch, where they had, what do you call it, when everything's laid out, like a smorgasbord type thing. And it's made with ground garbanzo beans, spices, and then it's deep fried like a meatball. And that was very popular. You could eat them in a pita bread kind of thing. We found those in several places. This is where we purchased our lunch that day. We were all on our own. And then this building is just full of bullet holes. And I thought you might find that interesting to notice all of them. Took a picture of these fellows because we were all looking for soldiers. We'd heard about them, and we saw them in different places. There was one group waiting to go see the upper room. We went to the Holocaust Museum one afternoon, and there was a large contingency of soldiers there. And I don't know, what kind of guns are they holding?
It's an AR-15, basically.
Hmm.
Oh, those are soldiers. There were a lot of women soldiers there.
This is a temple King Herod built, and pardon me?
That's the mock-up, the whole city.
Right, part of your wonderful photo. You can see here the people are, so you can see how large this mock-up is. And this is the temple itself, and I guess the money lenders were in here.
And then the whole open
And
area.
this is all public space here. It was a very interesting thing to see. And here's your gate. Mm-hmm.
Can you go back to that scene?
Mm-hmm.
I'm particularly fascinated about this. Living in San Antonio, you've often seen where people buy a piece of property and they cut off the top of the hill to make it flat so they can use it. And there you see the natural course of the earth along that bottom arc of the wall. Herod decided he would build the whole thing up. So right under the temple is supposed to be Mount Moriah and Abraham and Isaac and things like that. And so they built those gigantic walls and then filled the whole thing in. I mean, it's unbelievable how much work they did.
So now we're going to go to the Garden Tomb. That's our Mike Fanning, our leader.
Yeah, that's the guy.
In the green? Oh, okay. So this gentleman is from Canada, I think.
Great Britain.
And he had a really good diagram here. This is where you enter the tomb where Christ was laid. This is a preparation room where they anointed him with oils and so forth. And this is where he was laid. And then there's room for, said 2 other people, one, and I don't know, somewhere in here. So I thought that was interesting to see before we went into the tomb itself.
Susan,
Yes, ma'am.
on that particular one, the thing that impressed me that I had no earthly idea before, most of the places in Jerusalem are controlled by the Jewish community.
Oh, right.
The Arab community. I mean, this particular place at the garden at the tomb has been allowed to stay still under the control, as it were, of the Christian community.
Mm-hmm.
And people rotate in and out of taking kind of responsibility. This man's going to only be there for a few weeks, and then somebody else will come.
Right.
But the Christian community, kind of worldwide, really, takes this responsibility of keeping this area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the only one that we encountered while we were there.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Thank you. So that's the place where Jesus was laid. And that's the exterior of the tomb. Let's see where we are. So as we're driving along, I was looking to see if I could find any Bedouins, and this is a place where they live, and so this is a home, and they had a goat herd, but my picture was really blurred with that, that was fenced in an area. One of our guides was a Bedouin, and he said, you know, the Bedouins really love the life that they have. They don't want to be in a city. They want to be out in nature, and they have trucks. That's probably the nicest thing that they have. And their kids go to school. So, but very different from the way we want to live. And that's the way a lot of the land looked. And you wonder where the trees are that they built their fishing boats with and so forth. So we're going to Jordan, to Mount Nebo. And this is the monument to Moses. Mount Nebo, Memorial of Moses, Christian holy place. And this is a basilica. It's a Siyagha basilica and monastery, and the columns are what's left of the interior of the monastery. And this is a fantastic mosaic. It's in perfect shape. And it's really the second mosaic, because on top of that there was sand, and then there was another mosaic on top of it which had some kind of animals in it that the Pope didn't like. So he had them remove that mosaic. And when they did, they found this one underneath it. And it's got animals in it too, so maybe he didn't come back. This is what, I took this picture thinking of Moses being on the top of this mountain, looking out at the land that God had given him, and what he must be thinking and seeing. And then this is part of that same area where they've been irrigating. So I was going to ask you to look at the height of the people back in the Garden of Gethsemane next to the tomb. This stone could have been the same size as the one that was used in front of Christ's tomb. This was used to close out the door of the monastery. And so it gives you an idea of the size and weight. Yeah.
In front of the tombs, there's a carved, grooved trench that goes along the wall of the cliff, and that rock sits in it, and then they roll it in front of the tomb and put rocks around it. And so that's why you think of Mary and Margaret or somebody moving that. It's like, no, I don't think so.
Or the soldiers
Even a
moving
couple
it.
of soldiers,
Couldn't have done that.
That's probably a little larger than the one in front of Jesus' tomb, but it would have had to been, I'm roughly 6 feet tall. It had to have been at least 7 feet tall, and maybe 8, so you can see. It was almost this big.
Yeah, it was like a gutter that the stone rolled in as they moved it back and forth. Well, now we're going to go to Jordan, and this particular kingdom of Jordan that we're going to see is about the size of Maine. It's roughly, we're talking about Jordan, is about 34,500 square miles. And the desert is made up of red sand or sandstone, which is deteriorated into sand. And there's a very interesting fortress that was built there in 169 BC, and the people lived there until 106 AD. It wasn't discovered until 1821 by a Swiss explorer. And we're going to see the ancient Nabatean capital, which was an Arab kingdom, with its temples, tombs, and caves carved in sandstone. And I wonder, this is the entrance to Petra. How many of you watch the movies by Indiana Jones? A lot of you? And do you remember the one where he rode down this canyon on horseback with his father, and he was looking for the lost chalice of Christ? Well, the place where they came to with that beautiful facade is the temple here, or not temple, the tomb of the king. And I really wanted to see that, and so this is why we're here. But we learned a whole lot more than that. So here's one for Indy. Okay, here's the map and the entry gate. And we're going to walk all the way. Here's the start of it's the SIQ, however you pronounce that. And that's the beginning of a cavern that we go down. There's the spelling of it. And we keep going and going. And this is what we came to see. We walked about this far. We didn't go any further. We've already gone, I think, total it was almost 2 miles, almost a mile in and a mile back. But here's the place of sacrifice. The street of facades, we saw that. And then there's a theater, royal tombs, the church, a great temple. So you could probably spend all day there. So we're walking down in the early morning. Our hotel was like across the street, I think. And this man came riding down, Bedouin, and another one. It's temperamental. Here we go. And this is the beginning, close to, of the SIQ. So you can see how tall these walls are. They are 80 meters high, and I'm sorry, which is 1,000 feet high. And the scholars who have uncovered all this believe there's still 70% that they haven't found, that it's all underground. This is an example of one of their gods. They were just square, rectangular. There's another god. So the people lived in caves like this, and you'll notice these holes here, or indentations, and they put poles in there and have them come out like this, and then they put a covering on it so that they could extend their house out there and you could sit out there like it was your patio or something. And it gets confusing as to whether or not this was a tomb or whether it was a home. But you can see now they're using these decorating. And when they cut this, they start from the top and then they go down like this, where they're building that. In this particular one, it is a tomb, and there are 4 pieces here which tell us that there were 4 people buried in this tomb. Not all of them do that sort of thing. So we've gone quite a ways until you see the sign for the SIQ. And we were met by these two men in soldiers' costumes, which I thought was really kind of fun. This is the original road, so over 2,000 years old. And this is probably another god that's been carved out of the wall. This is like a gutter to carry water. And inside of it, we still have, the clay pipe that they made to carry the water down that area. They have cisterns alongside of the SIG where the rock comes down like this. They'll build a wall to seal that off, and then they store their water behind it. So they really were inventive on the way they did things. So our guide was very clever. He'd say, come over here and let's stand here. I want to show you something over here. And so then he'd move us to another place and another place. And his purpose was to get us in a position where we could see this dramatic light coming through the stone and or through the tunnel here. And as we got closer and closer, we're getting to the treasury. And it was just magnificent to see it evolve as we walked towards it. So this is where the king is buried. And we were told that the heads of these statues were shot off or something because people thought they were something evil, which they weren't. The interior of this probably isn't any bigger than this and maybe 10 feet deep. So when the king dies, then there's a big reception in that area and he's buried there. And what Indiana Jones went into, which was like a big cathedral with all these stairs going up and so forth. That doesn't exist. Just the exterior was all that they used in the movie. And again, they carve all of this top down. Lots of camels. And these are what the Bedouins bring, and I had to ride one of those. It was really, really interesting. When you get on the camel, they're lying down, and the head is, if it's pointed that way, you have to lean back because he gets his back feet up first, and so that would throw you forward. So you're leaning back while he gets his back feet up, and then you lean forward while he gets his front feet up. And then when you get off, it goes just the opposite. So that was an interesting exercise. What is this? Oh. Here's Don, I think. Did you buy that bread? So the Bedouins come in and sell different things. So as we walk down this street of facades, they're just bunches of these tombs, and you see them in various forms of, well, it looks like this one's eroded a bit. Some of them have just been started, not completed. Like this one, you've got the basic outline, but that's as far as it got. There you've got that design again up here. This one's been started, but you can see how much further along this one is. This doesn't even have a door. So look at all those tombs. Well, we're leaving the Petra area, and we're going to go to Wadi Rum. Wadi means valley. How many of you saw Lawrence of Arabia? Y'all see that movie? Well, this is where it was filmed. And Wadi means valley. So the other films that were made in this area are The Rise of Skywalker, Tron, Moon Knight, Revenge of the Fallen, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, The Martian, Dune, and Lawrence of Arabia. So Lawrence of Arabia wrote a book, 7 Pillars of Wisdom. Have any of you all read it? It looks like it might be pretty interesting. And I think it's named after this rock formation, which I think if you squeeze the last one, you get 7 pillars there. And it's right at the entrance. So we rode around this huge area in 4x4s. And they had benches that they made that they put on each side of the 4x4. So you're sitting up off the floor of the truck about this high on a textile covered cushion, no seat belts, and what would you say we're going 50 miles an hour or something? one time we're going 50 miles an hour. So they just do that all the time. We're just not used to it. And these are just some photos of that. So I wanted to show you these rock walls. There were multiple civilizations who've put their petroglyphs there. The Nabateans, the Kufic, and the Thamudi. And they're petroglyphs of camels, horses, and people across thousands of years. And someone mentioned, that is probably our guide, that the way the camels are faced indicates that there's water down there. So it's like a sign for people who are living in the desert and traveling and needing to know where those things are. The one thing I wish we could have done is they had these places like a KOA campground, but they were tents that were rounded, and there must have been maybe 15 or 20 in a grouping, and you could rent that and have the Bedouins fix your food for you. They would smoke things in the ground. And, when you think about what it would be like to be there at night and see the stars, it would be just amazing because there's no light out there. But that was not anything that was offered, so I don't have that. Okay. And there were numerous Bedouins that you saw leading their group of camels, and that's how they make their money, is getting people to ride them. This is the tribute to Lawrence of Arabia that they've carved out of the sandstone with the wreath, and King Hussein. If you look way down here, there's kind of a shed, open shed, and that's where the Bedouins had set up their little store and greeting area. And these are teapots that are heating water in this little fireplace. And they were serving tea. So when you walked in there, they offered you tea, and you can see the little teacup Bill has. And evidently it's, when they offer you your tea, you need to take it and drink it, and it's a way of being kind and reciprocal to them and their culture, and it's an insult not to. And there's Barbara trying to figure out which shawl she's going to buy her scarf. They had, silk scarves, and Lulu and Marcus looking at those things. And there's this wonderful Bedouin who graciously got in pictures with anyone who wanted to stand with him, which was very nice. And there's Don trying to decide whether to talk to this lady. She's
I was sitting about 5 feet from where they were, and I said, "Here's a Bedouin lady. This really is, I'm watching her." And she said some very short phrase to some other person. They came and sat down. In a minute, they started speaking Spanish. They were Mexicans.
Were they really? Well, the women bought those headdresses and wore them. Lulu bought one. And I think this is another video, I believe. Yeah. So we were riding in the truck, and he was taking his camels back home. It's not going to work. Oh, so since we're having lunch, I thought I'd get you ready for that and look at a little of the food. That's the end of Petra and Wadi Rum. But at breakfast at some of our hotels, and we stayed at only 5-star hotels because it's not recommended to stay at any others, according to Mike, who went to school in Tel Aviv College. So here's our honey. And they just had amazing displays at the hotels for breakfast. That's breakfast. This was dinner, and at the first hotel we stayed at. That's breakfast. So there you are. Hope you learned something. Yes, Yes.
You just said you didn't know about it.
No, I mentioned that his son died in the theater. Josephus did record that, but I don't know, if it was a natural death or not. He didn't say anything. I presume it must have been, or they would have said something. Oh, that's what it said? Well, good. You've cleared that up. Thank you. Helen couldn't hear you. Could you stand up and maybe she's in the back, that's why I could find. That Josephus said in the book of Acts that he was killed in the theater? No. Or died?
That Josephus did record that, and so that does confirm the biblical account that he died in the theater, and historians generally do believe. I don't think that they're all going to say that the angel of the Lord struck him down, but it seems that that's something that they pretty much agree to put of the location, and just they're not. You can't expect everyone in their history books to say the angel of the Lord struck him down, but I don't know. Joe would probably know if there's been some other explanation for him just suddenly dying in the theater.
I only know the biblical explanation. But it's interesting that Josephus collaborates the biblical stories over and over. So that's thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And who wants to go to Israel next time? So I would love to go again. I'd love to lead a group of Keys folks, and I'd like to work at making it a little more user-friendly, working at being able to see something but not have to walk from the bottom of Jerusalem is on a hill. And you come in at the Pool of Bethesda, and up at the Jewish Quarter is a pretty steep incline. And so by the time I know I had some folks saying to me, I wish I could have seen more of the old city, but I was too busy watching my feet where I was putting them. But there are ways to see that, experience that, and then go back to the bus and come up to the top. So it's a lot of walking. Harold. It would be awesome. It would be awesome. And the problem is, and I was there 3 times. First time was on a trip with my dad when I was a senior in high school, and it was one of those trips where you went, took a bunch of pictures, and went home and looked at your pictures to see what you had seen. Almost. And then my second time, I was a junior in college, and we spent 8.5 weeks traveling through Europe and Israel. We spent a month in Israel at the American Institute for Holy Land Studies, and we were all over the place. That's the way to do it. But who has a month to designate for that? And in these trips, you're wanting to see as much as you can, so you're up at 8 o'clock on the bus, back to the hotel at 6 o'clock for dinner, and doing that 10 or 12 days in a row is exhausting. Yes, combination of, I'm glad I did this, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to, but man, I'm tired. And so, there you go. And you don't have to. You won't have to pay to get there. So glad that you're here. Glad that you had an opportunity to see these pictures. Petra is amazing. If you can do a side trip there, as you walk through and showed the light, and then you could see the carving. Walking through that narrow passageway, and then it opens up to the Treasury building, is amazing. So there you have it, and make sure that you take advantage of the next trip to Israel. Glad that we can have lunch together. I think lunch is ready. Let me pray and thank God for our time together and for our meal together. Heavenly Father, thank you for this group. Thank you for the fellowship that we have, for the friendships that are developed. We ask your blessing on this food as we share together. We ask your blessing on those who will serve it and those who have prepared it. Give us great fellowship around these tables today. In Jesus' name, amen.